Hi everyone, Mature Simmer here. So I'm going to go ahead and get the soil sampling done on the remainder of the field that I wasn't able to get to due to the fact that I had oats on it that I needed to harvest. So now that that's taken care of, we're going to go ahead and work on this. So I'm going to open this up so you can see it immediately change my mini map to soil types. And then I'm going to lower it down. Actually, it looks like it was lowered. And then I'm going to start taking measurements. So I'm going to have you follow along at least for a bit, in case you've never used this before, so at least I can explain how I do it. So I'm looking at the green circle on the mini map and basically trying to maximize the the area that I can get covered. So the circle kind of gives you that. It goes ahead and expands a little bit beyond that, but you'll see now there's a red circle there. So like that point of the field, I need to keep it in the green circle, but the more efficient I am in not overlapping, the fewer samples I need to take. Each sample costs $150 to have the lab analyze. So it starts taking all that information in. And what I like to normally do is go around the edge, and so now we'll see if I miss that little piece. And if I did, it's usually not enough to worry about, but a lot of times it'll pop in, and yeah, so you can see it's red. So I did okay, but it was definitely really close. So I want to be a little, yeah, see, like that's too far. You can see a large portion of gray has left the circle. But what I do is in essence, you can consider it a headland pass, I suppose. I go around and get the edges of the field, and then I go through the center. But the challenge with doing that is, because it's a circle, you're going to have little indents. You can see just behind where the circle is, it's a very little one because I was pretty good on keeping the edge straight. But once again, there's no point in letting it hang off the field too much, because taking a soil sample either of my neighbor's field or the grass doesn't help. But you'll start to see now that we've turned a corner how we're going to have kind of strange areas open. So you can see there's like a little finger that goes in that we're going to have to worry about. And see, so this is one, like I might be able to get to the corner. It's going to be really close because I may have gone too far and left a piece in the back. But we'll see. I'm hoping it draws it in. Now it looks like we did go a little too far. Again, it's such a tiny piece, it's not worth another $150 soil sample, so I'm not going to go ahead and do that. But you can see now I've certainly gone too far, so let me back up there. So because of how I didn't quite get to the edge, I've got that little bit of overlap, and so really I only got like half the distance that I normally would. And you can hit the B key kind of as you're moving, because as soon as you start to take a sample, it in essence stops your tractor. I think again I've got a little dot of gray, so I'm pushing the distance a bit. I try to not do that again more than I need to, so I'll try to be more careful as I go around. Part of what'll help is, just heading down here, because I'll have more of the circle in, but once again, then I'm wasting a portion off the field. But I'm also able to move a little further. And so if you take a sample and you know, if I try to move now, like if I hit the gas, you can see I'm really struggling because basically the probe is in the ground at that point, and so I can't really move. I've never pressed it so far to see, like, if I really keep trying, will I, like, damage the probe? Obviously that wouldn't be a good goal. And once again, sampling those islands is something I don't need to do. So up in the top, you will see the number of soil samples taken is 13. And you know, it'll just keep counting that up. And if I had the help menu open, it shows up at the bottom of the help menu, so you can see it multiple ways. But that, you know, is informational, really. There's nothing, it's neither good nor, whoops, that is a big enough gap that I'll probably go ahead and fix that, unfortunately. Well, is it? Now I'm wondering. No, it's actually pretty tiny, so we'll leave it alone. But as you can see, it's a bit of a challenge to see and just make sure you're getting everything done. And if we go ahead here onto the map and the soil information, we're up here because I've taken my samples and sent them to the lab. Like, I can see my soil types, but here right now it's just showing me the red of soil sample taken. And what we're going to start to see, like, our score had been 39, I think, and we're starting to go up because the soil sampling is improving, because I'm now covering more of the field with soil samples. Now, it'll be interesting, I would think, that as long as I get all of the arable land, really the field, covered, that I'll have the full score for soil sampling. But it may prove a bit elusive, because I think if I had done the automated route of having the soil samples taken, I think it just takes your total acreage into account and basically says, well, we're going to sample everything, I don't know, under the auspices that if you plow up other areas, maybe it'll already be done. Although I don't know that I've ever tried that, to have a soil map and then to purchase a soil map and then go ahead and plow more land and expand my fields. I went too far again. So we'll see what happens. Yeah, that's enough. Just to get myself the pain of spending extra money because I'm in a hurry. I'll go and get that done, and you know, it's another $150 because of trying to take some shortcuts. But you can see and have a pretty good idea. And so this, so sorry, I had a thought and then I started to change. But you can see and have a pretty good idea that it takes a little while, because you can see these, I mean, it's going into the field a bit, but there will be a lot. So there were 114 samples needed for the part that is done already, just to give you some perspective. And in aggregate, this is probably still a little bit larger, because even with the center section that I did, and I didn't do like every last inch, there's a piece past the fermenting silo and the cow barn that I left alone. And again, I'm stopping early here because of that little arm that's sticking out basically up and to the right as we look at the map, because that would have floated off. But no, what I was starting to say is the second point is what I tend to do is try to line things up with the bottom rounded point. So even though it's a circle, you'll notice if you were to take a measurement in the center, and I'll just go ahead and do that after this one because I think I can get the corner done here. Yes, I will be able to do that. So I'll show you what I mean, but you'll see that the soil sample is not really a circle. It's more of a hexagon. So think of it as a stop sign in your field. So if I'm here in the middle of nowhere and I just take the sample there, so I hit B and you saw how fast my tractor stopped. And then as we pull away and go back, you'll see that, it has some edges. It has, so is it really six-sided? Not necessarily. It's actually more round in FS22 than it was in FS19. In FS22, it very much resembled a stop sign. So, but it kind of gives you an idea of then what you're kind of trying to line up. And so when I do those edges, a lot of times I'll do that with the understanding that I'm going to have these little pieces. So now we're going to, in essence, have a three-sided protrusion there that I can't get, and that's just the nature of trying to run these together the way I am. But so that's giving you an example there. Well, at the top I'm going to have a lot more pronounced gap, but I'm maximizing the coverage area that the soil sample can take. But this takes a little bit of time, especially on the fact that we've got, I think, 64 acres down here that we need to get sampled. And really, if I had the estimates right when I measured the field before, the top part's 54 and the center part was 5. So at best I had 60 acres that I sampled with 114. So I would expect that I'm going to get that I'm going to need more samples. However, I have areas here in the southern portion, those center sections, that I don't have to sample. So that may change the equation a little bit, but a lot of this just comes down to where do the samples line up, and again, how can I maximize my coverage to avoid having to take any more samples than I need to. So you can see we're already at 33. And so if we take a look at precision farming detail, you can see soil samples are actually a cost of your field. And so between the last reset and I think the last thing that happened the last night, because there are costs going up and our totals dropping. So at this point, because of the samples, the profit that it was estimating for oats, and I don't know, I've never actually tested because I don't know how you could, because it estimates some yield, but you don't necessarily always get that yield off the field. But it tries to figure that out, and so at this point, between the soil samples and the cost of doing things on the field, which include fuel and vehicle maintenance that it also estimates, basically at this point it's telling me I'm breaking even. Boy. And the reason I'm doing that is I'm doing stuff like this, where I now have to go back and fix that because I was sloppy. So, but if I keep spending 150 where I don't need to, I have kind of that going on. So, the hope is over time, obviously, that we're going to see more profit off the field. But, I don't know. So the other challenge I'm going to have is that environmental score is over the entire field. And, if I had more than one, what precision farming does is basically average your fields together to give you an overall score. And that is then what impacts. There's a lot of lag there, that's why I went that far. But again, I saw what the problem was and didn't do that. I'm getting a little too far away from the edge of the field, so you can see a lot more of that hexagon shape here that I was talking about. So we just, for whatever reason, to prove me wrong, when I went out in the middle of the field, it just made it a more perfect circle so that it could make me look foolish, like I didn't know what I was saying, but now you could see those edges. So I'm really only able to kind of get halfway up, but part of that has to do with the fact that I'm getting too far from the edge of the field, and so I have to stop earlier to allow the overlap. So, you know, there's a bit of debate, like, is it better to be closer to the field, you know, so you don't have anything to the edge of the field, so you don't have anything sticking down, or, you know, is it better to get further out into the field with your measurements? Because the other benefit we're getting here is that we don't have large pieces sticking out on the inside either. But now that I've moved over, you can see we're able to go just a little bit more. I mean, it doesn't look like much on the mini map, but you know, it's probably another 10 feet or something, which over the course of an entire field can add up to, you know, maybe 1 or 2 samples less as I go up the field. So we're not really near the edge yet. So you kind of get an idea on how this works. You can see we're, you know, coming up on 50 samples, and we haven't even done the edges of the field yet. So on small fields, you know, this isn't too bad, but basically the coverage area, which would make sense because, you know, if you think about it, I mean, when you're doing this and mimicking it, I mean, you're taking a soil sample and it can only give you information so far out in the soil, and that dynamic doesn't change based on how big your field is. So I know, you know, there's been folks, you know, myself included at times, when I'm just like, it's too much, that have said, well, you know, for large maps like this, it would be nice if it covered more a percentage of your field than a set area. But, you know, that would be like saying, well, because my field's big, I want my 45-foot harvester to cover 90 feet. Because I just want to get done at the same speed. But obviously that isn't realistic and doesn't make sense. So, you know, after I get past the, gee, I'd just like to be done today, I want it now, the, you know, Violet syndrome from Willy Wonka, that, you know, I understand it makes sense. Like, obviously we have bigger fields, we need more soil samples because they only cover the area they cover, and it doesn't change based on size of your fields. So we've now hit all 4 corners, or, well, in this field, the way it's set up, technically has more than 4 cornery type things, because we're going around. We've got this part that sticks out further, for example. But I'm going to go ahead at this point and finish up the soil samples, and I'll be back then at the end of the evening when I'm getting ready to send them, so I can show you how that works. You know, as I've said in the other video, you know, there's a really in-depth tutorial and then follow-up series of some testing of crop sensors that I did in the on the channel, so I'll try to link that up here if I remember, but if not, in the previous video you should be able to find it when I talked about PF. So but I'm going to get this done, and when I'm ready to send those off to the lab, I'll be back. So I'll see you then. Alright, so I've gone ahead and done my soil samples. So sadly, it looks like we've got a lot of silty clay down here. So I wish I had better news, but sadly I don't. So we'll just have to see how things go. but we've done everything we can. We had about 120 soil samples there, so it was another $18,000 to get things done. And so you can see we did a total of 233 soil samples. If I went ahead and did this purchase soil information, I'll go ahead and click this. So you can see instead it would take 531, so nearly 300 more. And instead of being 34,000, it'd be 139,000. And I don't know, that makes a lot of sense, because it's about 17,000 to buy that Asaria Scout that we've got. Soil sampling usually gives you valid data for 3 or 4 years, then you have to do it again, and so the cost would be the same. And I'm thinking it's sampling like all the space, like it would be sampling my yard, it would be doing all of this, which really doesn't give you any benefit. So but at this point I think I've done everything I can until the spring. Obviously if I come back I'll certainly share things with you, but for now we are all set and ready to go into next year with our cows and everything else that is going to come with it. So I'll see you next time.